my gosh, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening!
We are doing my best books of 2019. I cannot believe that we are here right now. It is the end of 2019. It is the end of a decade. This list was very stressful to make. Not to be dramatic. I have all of my top 10 books of 2019. I wanted to keep it as short a list as possible. We wanted to be cutthroat in this video, and this is the best of the best. So I'm ready to just gush about these books. I'm sure if you guys are frequent viewers of my channel, you guys probably could guess the books that I'm going to talk about today. Now, before we get into this video, I did just want to announce that I do have an Amazon affiliate link now, which is extremely exciting. So if you want to buy any of the books on this list, go ahead and check out the link down below. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It just supports me and gives me a small commission, which will support this channel. And without further ado, let's get into it. I did just want to include a runner-up, and that is Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. If you saw my favorite authors of 2019, Mary H.K. Choi did make my top 5 list of the year because she is an incredible author who really makes me root for the characters and care about the characters. Emergency Contact is about this girl named Penny who is a first-year college student. This is a new adult novel, which is one of the things that I love about it. And she meets our second character, Sam, and Sam is actually the uncle of Penny's roommate, and she runs into him one day while he is in the midst of a panic attack, and she kind of takes care of him, and they swap numbers and they become each other's emergency contact. Their relationship and their romance is developed mainly via text. They just have so much chemistry, and their relationship is extremely realistic. These two characters are extremely cynical. I would say that if you are an overly optimistic person, if you don't like your characters to complain or air their grievances about life and about people, definitely stay away from this book. But I would say that if you are more cynical, if you are a little more pessimistic, you would relate to these characters so much. They really just complain about life together, and I just related to them so much. I loved them so much. There are a bunch of discussions about like mental illness in here. There's some mother-daughter relationships that are worked out, and it's just a fantastic, realistic read that isn't boring because you really do care for the characters and they really just drive this book forward. Love this book so much. I wish it made my top 10, but unfortunately it didn't quite make the cut, but I really do love this story. Now we're getting into the actual list. At number 10, we have Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schultz. Like I said, if you watch my videos, if you watch my channel, you probably are not surprised to see this book on this list. This is a sci-fi fantasy story, and it takes place in this country of Kodara, and Kodara is broken up into 4 quadrants. Each of the 4 quadrants is ruled by 4 queens. We follow the perspective of each of the 4 queens, as well as a 5th perspective who is named Carolee. Carolee is this thief, mercenary, kind of underground individual who gets caught up in a murder mystery plot against the 4 queens when she ingests these memory chips that display the murder of the queens. And so she's wrapped up in this political murder mystery. We follow the background of each of the 4 queens and the chaos that ensues at the palace where they all reside. There is a female-female romance in here. Carolee is one of those female protagonists who kind of takes on the tropes of a male protagonist, where she's very charismatic, she's very flirtatious. This is extremely fast-paced, it's extremely unique. There are a ton of plot twists in here, and it's a standalone, so I will always recommend a fast-paced, unique fantasy standalone because they are just the absolute best. And I don't need to talk about this book much more because you guys have heard me rave about it constantly. Number 10, Four Dead Queens. Now, at the number 9 spot is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I again discovered Leigh Bardugo this year. I read the entire Grishaverse. I have yet to read Crooked Kingdom though. I honestly didn't want to mess this list up because I already had it made, so I didn't want to read Crooked Kingdom and then have it all messed up. Anyways, Six of Crows, I'm sure you guys know what it's about. It follows a band of characters as they are attempting to do a heist and they are attempting to break somebody out of this unbreakable prison. Very Ocean's 11-esque. I talked about this when in the vlog where I read this for the first time. Leigh Bardugo was able to give me the feelings of teenage me reading a series. I don't know if I can describe it properly, but the attachment that you feel to characters where you just want to spend hours looking at fan art, scrolling through Tumblr, drafting up headcanons, that nostalgic feeling of being a teenager and falling in love with a series. I thought I had grown out of that ability to have those feelings again, but Leigh Bardugo proved me wrong, and once I read this, I really understood why this is so popular, why these characters are so beloved. I think Leigh Bardugo is a master at character work and making people fall in love with their characters. I thought the plot was incredible. I thought the characters were amazing. Nina is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I fell in love with her before I even met her, and as soon as I met her, it just solidified my love and adoration for her. This will forever be a favorite, and I'm so grateful that I ingested this story this year. Now, coming in at the number 8 spot, we have The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. Listen, this book is just so important and it's so amazing in the messages in here and the execution of the plot and the characters. The Gilded Wolves is National Treasure meets the Da Vinci Code meets 19th century France. This is the absolute perfect heist novel, period. Roshani is the intellect of this woman. She takes you through every step of the process to them getting this artifact and finding this artifact. Like I said, it's a heist novel. We follow a band of characters as they are looking for this ancient artifact, and it has a bunch of magic in here and treasure hunting themes and stuff. Just read it. Anyways, she goes through each process of the heist in such detail. We go with the characters as they learn the process of trying to decipher these codes and go through the next step of trying to retrieve this artifact. So it's like National Treasure, Indiana Jones. It's perfect. And it's all of that as well as such a beautifully done commentary on the effects of imperialism and colonialism and white supremacy, and it's just it's magnificent. Please go watch my review on this book because I guarantee that it will shape your view on this book, because the discourse surrounding this book and how this book is perceived in the community just does not do it justice in the slightest on how great this book is, how intricate this book is, and how much of a masterpiece it is. Now at the number 7 spot, we have Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. If you notice, all of the authors in this book have been my favorite authors of 2019, Katie Henry being my number 1, which, can we just talk about how a YA contemporary author is my number 1 favorite author of 2019? Kind of blows my mind a little bit. Heretics Anonymous follows our main character Michael, and he is an atheist, but because of the circumstances of moving and parents' positioning, he has to attend a Catholic school, and he gets dragged into this group called Heretics Anonymous, where it is just a band of kids who either don't fit the mold of the Catholic Church, or they aren't Catholics, or they just think differently than what the Catholic Church and the Catholic school wants them to think. One of my absolute favorite interests and something that I will go into professionally is religious discourse. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's fascinating to me, and this book takes it in a cute, fun, YA contemporary avenue. Katie Henry is hilarious in her books, on Twitter, everywhere. She gives so much autonomy and legitimacy to teenagers, writes them the best way, most realistic way I've ever seen written. I adore her for that. Love this book. Love everything about it. It's a favorite. That's why it's on this list. Now at the number 6 spot, I'm kind of sad that this isn't in my top 5, but like I said, I'm trying to be very cutthroat in this video because it's fun to torture yourself once in a while, you know? We love a masochist. At the number 6 spot is Lovely War by Julie Berry. Now I don't feel too bad because this was on a number 1 spot in one of my videos. I think it was my underrated books of 2019. And I give this book plenty of screen time on my channel, so I don't feel too bad about putting it on, not on my top 5, but I still feel a little bad because of how magnificent this book is. This is a World War I historical romance. We are following 3 main romances in this book. Don't worry, it's not overwhelming at all. They all fit together perfectly and intertwined. And this story is narrated by Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love and beauty. And it is her telling the story of her greatest feats of love and her greatest examples of love, and she's telling it to various other gods in the pantheon. This was one of the most surprising books of 2019 too, because I knew I was probably gonna give it 5 stars. It's narrated by Aphrodite, but I have a extreme distaste for World War historical fiction, but this was so incredible in that it was more about the romances than it was about the war and the horrible things. Like, don't get me wrong, like, those things are discussed. We even discuss a lot about the African Americans in World War I. One of the characters, one of the romance is between a French woman and an African American. She even talks about the historical context in the back, and it's a beautiful story that still addresses the events of the World War while also still maintaining that wholesome and happy nature of love and romance. So it's really just a wholesome and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story that deserves so much hype and so much recognition. Will forever be a favorite on my list. Now at the number 5 spot is a book that I think a lot of you guys are going to be surprised at its placement. I certainly was when I was drafting this list. I was like, wow, that book is kind of low on the list, but we're on the top 5 here, so it's still a big favorite. Number 5 is going to go to House of Song and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. This year, I have developed a brand of being the number 1 fan of House of Song and Sorrows. I mean, you can argue with me about that, but the amount of videos and the amount of times I yell about this book, I talk about it on my channel, probably is too much. It's not too much for me, but it probably is a little too much for you. I don't care though. I love this book, and this deserves all of the hype it got. I'm so happy it got so much hype this year. I'm so happy the amount of people that read this book. It was a great time to see. House of Song and Sorrows is a horror YA fantasy retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. We open up the book at the funeral of the 4th oldest sister. She is the 4th child in this family to pass on. By the time of the 4th death of her sisters, Annalie, our main character, starts to think that maybe there are more malicious intents with their deaths and malicious circumstances surrounding them. This is the scariest book I've ever read. Granted, take that with a grain of salt. I don't read horror, and I don't watch horror movies, so I avoid that stuff with a 30-foot pole, let me just tell ya. But for a YA fantasy, and I believe multiple people can agree with me on this, regardless of if it's their probably not their scariest book that they've ever read, but many people who have read this book because of me have said that, yeah, it's pretty creepy. I've heard lots of comparisons to Crimson Peak, like that aesthetic, because it's like Victorian, Manor by the Sea. I don't know if Crimson Peak takes place on an island, but I know that it's like Victorian. This is very Victorian. In addition to following Annalie as she is trying to uncover the mysteries of her sister's deaths, there is also another plot where it follows Annalie and her sisters as she is trying to find this mysterious door, this mysterious portal to take them all to these balls, which is of course where the 12 Dancing Princesses aspect comes into play. I know you guys probably are like, yeah, we get it, you love this book. I know I'm biased, but the writing in here is incredible. Top notch. This is her debut. So incredibly impressed by the amount of atmosphere in this, the amount of descriptions in here, the total immersive effect that she gives with her writing. Also, own world mythology is so incredibly amazing in here. It is sprinkled in the most effective way possible that isn't info dumpy at all, but really just broadens this world in a way that standalone, you just don't expect a standalone fantasy to do. She is able to create this amazing immersive world that is still self-contained on this island, and it doesn't take away from the plot at hand. It doesn't get too convoluted, but it just gives us that world building that we expect with a fantasy series, but she just does it in a most concise way in a little book. There is insta-love romance in here. Just deal with it. It's not that big of a deal, but it is there. So there you go. It's a fairy tale retelling. Of course there's going to be insta-love in it. It's an incredible story, and I have gotten a lot of people to pick this up, which I'm so grateful for. That is why I do this. That is why I have this channel, is to convince people to read this book, and many people have not been disappointed. So if that doesn't convince you, if I haven't convinced you yet, I should give up, because I have put my heart and soul into this book and I love it so much. Now, at our number 4 spot is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This book is going to be in so many people's top books of the year list. I already know that. I'm sure you guys all know that, so I'm going to keep it brief. This is a hate to love romance. I mean hate to love in the Hallmark Netflix original Christmas movie definition of hate to love. It's a rom-com, guys. But anyways, it's between the first son of the US and the royal prince. It's funny, it's fresh, it's representative of millennial humor, it is diverse, it is inclusive, it is perfection. This is the second book to ever make me cry, and the first book to ever make me cry will be on this list as well. So that is just an automatic 5-star for me, because I never cry in books. If a book is able to bring out those emotions, it's 5 stars. I mean, look at all the tabs I have. This speaks for itself. It's an amazing book. You guys know Red, White, and Royal Blue is amazing. I really don't need to speak on why this is the best of 2019. Come on, it speaks for itself. And my number 3 spot is something that has impacted me forever, and in a very personal and intimate way. And that is Aphrodite Made Me Do It by Trista Mateer. I talked about this a little bit with Lovely War, but I just have an extreme connection and personal relationship with Aphrodite. I can't really explain it. If you want to hear more about that, go look at my review for this poetry collection, because I talk a little bit more about what that exactly means in that video. Aphrodite Made Me Do It is a poetry collection. It basically starts out with our narrator cleaning up her apartment, and all of a sudden Aphrodite shows up, and our narrator is very confused because she's kind of given up on love. She doesn't want to entertain it any longer. She's just been hurt from the past by her exes as well as her mother, and she just doesn't want to deal with those emotions ever again. And so she asks Aphrodite, she's like, what are you doing here? I've given up on love. I don't want anything to do with it anymore. And Aphrodite just simply asks, then why am I here? Oh, I love, from the first page this book was made for me. It really was. It talks a lot about Aphrodite reclaiming her identity as a goddess of love, not in a sense of prissy, pink wearing, makeup wearing, adulteress way, but in a way that a goddess who creates wars, who is a subject of violence and chaos and extreme autonomy, and that she is older than all of the gods. She's older than the ocean that birthed her. She's just love, and that is an extremely powerful thing. Arguably one of the most powerful forces in the entire universe, not to get all sappy, but I mean, it's true. And then it also talks a lot about the narrator loving herself and coming to terms with the fact that she is worthy of love by other people as well as herself, which is the most important. It has a lot about being queer, like coming to terms with your queerness, and people who don't accept that. It's absolutely amazing. There's also incredible art in here that I believe is by the author, and it's sprinkled in throughout the book. It's a mixture of photography and typography and just sketches. This is one of my most important recommendations to people. It's so gut-wrenching and so stunning in the way that it makes you think about yourself and makes you feel like, yeah, I am worthy of love both by myself and by others. It just was completely inspiring and influential to my life. Now my number 2 spot has become my second favorite book of all time, and that is Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. If you would have told me by the start of the year that I would be putting a classic as my second favorite book of all time list and second on this list of just this year, I would have told you that you were crazy and I would not have believed you. But I am here to tell past me in my mind that you are a dumb bitch and you should pick up more classics. I will say that yes, I am open to reading more classics now, but I think classic readers and myself can agree that Oscar Wilde is just a whole other kind of breed of writer, and I really don't think I have the vocabulary to properly describe how incredible Oscar Wilde is, how ahead of his time he was in writing this book. I mean, I have 2 books by Aphrodite in here. My channel name is Aphrodite Reads. I have a thing for vanity, beauty, the power and influence that beauty has and aesthetics has. So just based on that, you can kind of deduce why I adore Picture of Dorian Gray so much and why this just completely rocked my world and created such an influence in my reading journey. I mean, it is about a man who sells his soul. His soul is now inside of a painting of himself because he wants to maintain the beauty and youth that a painting, a picture, can hold and stay motionless in time. Like, yeah, that's what I want. That's exactly what I want to read about. And romanticizing both falling to your whims and accepting the whims of your darkest desires while also showing the very big dangers of that. And it's just, oh god, it's so good. It's so good. Lord Henry is my favorite character of all time. Wow, every single time he spoke. He made me angry because of the things he said, but did he make me angry because I hated the way he said things and what he said, or did I hate him because what he said was mainly true? Except for some of the things he talked about women in this, but I'm just gonna chalk that up for being of the times. You are someone who doesn't read classics like me. I mean, this is the first classic I have ever read, besides the classics that I read in school, but I never read those to their entirety. Pick this book up because Oscar Wilde was so ahead of his time, not just in the story, but the writing, the humor in this. It is so applicable today. And the discussions in here, it's amazing. It's perfect. I don't have anything else to say. Now, the number 1 book I read in 2019 and the number 1 book in my mind forever and ever and ever of all time, Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I am so surprised that it took me so long to read this book. Granted, I stopped reading halfway through high school and I didn't pick up reading again till 2018, so I'm not totally kicking myself too much for not reading this because I just wasn't reading in general. But I read this year. I read Circe. Circe was the first thing I read this year, and then I read this. I don't need to tell you why this was so amazing and why this is my favorite book of all time, because if you know me, hello, Greek mythology, it's in my name. The amount I love the gays, hello, we know this. How do I even talk about Song of Achilles? It is a retelling of the Iliad, but not really. It's more of a romance between Achilles and Patroclus, and displaying them as lovers and reclaiming their identity as lovers, which was intended by the original poetry, because historians don't understand the concept of being gay, even though we uphold Greek civilization as the highest form of civilization. So don't understand how we can just ignore that they freaking loved men. But there's that. I don't know how to describe this book, I really don't. It's just stunning, it's beautiful, it's revolutionary, it represents what I want to do with history and kind of reclaiming those lost identities and giving voice to those identities that have been looked over, been lost. It's why I think Greek retellings are so incredibly important, and the way in which the narrative has been shifted to meet modern standards of morality, sexuality, and humanity. It's just amazing, and this made me cry like a bitch, because if you didn't cry while reading Song of Achilles, and Monty, I'm looking at you, I know you did it, and I know you don't like this book, but hear me out. It's just so beautiful, and it's stunning, and it just, it makes me emotional just thinking about it, like this, I'm gonna calm down. It's the best book of all time. So, yeah. Alright you guys, so that is the end of this long awaited video. Please let me know down below what your top 3 books of the year were. Actually, no, let's make it top 5 because I want to know as much as possible. You are even very much welcome to link down your best of the year videos down below, because obviously this is the highlight of the year. This is what everybody looks forward to at the end of the year. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe, and also make sure that if you want to buy any of these books, go check out the affiliate link. It will be down in the description bar below. It really helps me out, supports this channel. It's a win-win for everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!